track 2, produced by Trackmasters. The song is called The Message.
So, Sean, do you just wish that DJ Premier did this hook instead? Would that have solved your problem?
It wouldn't have solved the problem. Like, look, this is a great example for me where 96, Sean, I saw the joy in your eyes that you both had right now, like reliving the moments. I was able to see like 30 years of like history, nostalgia, personal affectation. I feel nothing inside in that respect when I hear this song. Because this is the problem. This is the problem.
It's crazy. Okay, gang.
So let me just say, my vote is to keep.
Okay.
Yeah, my vote is to keep because this has aged well, and I'm not viewing it through the same lens. But let me like put it through some perspective here. This record comes out in 1996. This record comes out on the same day as De La Soul's Stakes is High. And in my mind, without necessarily being aware of what was happening, those two records represent a fucking sea change in hip hop. Because in my eyes at that time, De La Soul is basically releasing a record where they're decrying the state of, everybody's talking about keeping it real, but you should try keeping it right. And they're decrying like mafioso, like raps and like the gangsterism that is like overtaking mainstream hip hop. Mm-hmm. And then again, from my eyes, it's like, this beat doesn't have a lot of strings. MidaZ, we've talked about how I have a real allergy to like string cinematic type beats. But this is in that wheelhouse. Right. And it's the kid who's talking about the tech on his dresser, now talking about mafioso type raps. And like, it's that vibe. And to me, it just totally irked me at that time. I don't feel as invested in that divide as I did back then. But it's impossible for me to divorce myself from that because that was the fucking like, this was the sea change. This was the turn of the tide. And I was like, this is not what I want from Nas.
Absolutely.
This seems like Nas is like getting in on like, yo, let me roll up to the Life After Death, like the Life After Death sessions. Like, what beats weren't used? Like, can I hop on this like Stevie J, beat? Can I hop on this like Nasheem Myrick joint? Like, okay, cool. So all that is to say is that my vote is to keep because it is dope. The rapping is great. It's not a bad beat, like it's pretty cool, but it will never mean to me what it means to y'all.
Jamil?
Man, I would say everything. I agree with you. Because I noticed that. I feel like it was Wu-Tang's fault, man. We, when they started the Wu Gambino's thing, man, when he came out the studio out in Park Hill or Stapleton, when he did Verbal Intercourse, he became Escobar, man. So,
right.
Remember, Nas is younger than these guys, man.
Right.
He goes and hangs out with Ray and Ghost. You come out like, these are older dudes.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying?
Right.
Something that you might not be on yet.
Right. Absolutely. But this, man, listen, first off, so for my birthday last July, I watched Nas perform this in a tuxedo in front of an orchestra. And crazy. I always like this. I always loved this song, right? But when I saw that, I was like, wow, I was just blown away. But anyway, yeah, it's a keep for me, man. This song is crazy to me. The beat, the rhymes, the cadence, everything he was saying in there,
Yeah, I love it. I'll even say it's a phenomenal intro to what can't be the same guy. Right. So like, if you think about it, Illmatic, when it comes out, these is writings from a kid that was 16, 17, 18.
Right.
Right.
16, 17, 18. Like, he's a kid writing those raps. And then, so you got to think, right? Like, everything on Illmatic that comes out in 94, he's writing between 91 and 94.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? Like, you're now an adult man, and after that with a whole bunch of different experiences. So like, I think it was I've always thought it was unfair that people were like, because the thing that they were drawn to was the kid who sits in the window and watches the streets and tells about it. But that was only gonna be for one album. Like, how many albums of that you got?
Exactly.
You know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
It's not sustainable to expect him to continue to do that. You have to. It'd be very sad if he never left his house.
Right.
You know, like you gotta,
yo, you still in the apartment looking out the window? Like, damn. So,
Right.
you know, he now the mafioso way, I mean, you could poke holes in whether or not it's authentic. But then again, you could poke the holes in its authenticity for everybody, not from Staten Island where there was actual mobsters at, and they were really seeing that lifestyle. Like,
Right.
we know Big wasn't you know, a Frank White, you know what I'm saying? But this this was a way to, I think actually it was a way for artists to be creative, right?
Right. Right.
You know, it was a way to write about something different that you don't, that's, you know, that you, it's a foray into creative writing. So I love the way it comes in real subtle. And then fucking, yo, I didn't know that this was pulled from The Professional because I didn't see The Professional until years later. And I remember watching The Professional and being like, yo, that's the Nas shit. Yo, I was going crazy. So to me, this one holds a lot of weight for me. And it was my first foray, not first foray, because I had heard the verse on the Cuban Links and the verse on the Mobb Deep shit. But it was my first foray, you know, really into, like, because we were really highly anticipating this record coming out. A lot of
Absolutely.
And it was my first foray into being like, do you hear how fucking Nas is rapping now? Like, the holy shit. Like, what happened to that guy? Like, he's on another level. When I say I think he's the best rapper, I think that's the best rapping I've ever heard. It's from a control standpoint, from a breath control standpoint, from a vocal tone standpoint, from a what words he's mixing standpoint, it's just like, it's so effortlessly amazing for this record, like the rapping. And what's crazy about it is I don't think he's rapped like this ever since.
Thank
to me, this was a one-time excursion into like a style that like after this album, that style died and he never went back to it. Like, even like the subtleties of what he could do with a pen changed. Like, even literally on I Am, he's still amazing. It's just a different kind of amazing. Like, he's
what do you attribute that to? What do you attribute that to?
You know, Sean, me and you talk a lot about, like, I think rappers have their different the different entities that they go through, right? So like you got 36 Chambers Ghostface, which bleeds a little bit into going early into the Cuban, but then you really got Cuban Link Ghostface, Iron Man Ghostface, right? That's kind of the same thing. Then you get Forever Ghostface Supreme. To me runs all the way into Clientele. Like, people talk about Clientele, and I'm like, yeah, he was rapping like that for like 3 years. You know what I'm saying? Doing like the crazy words, things don't make sense. You hit a verse on the RZA album, he's going crazy. So like, and then right after Bulletproof Wallets, it's a whole different Ghostface. He don't even rap like that no more. And he starts to rap like the raps on Pretty Tony are nothing like the raps on Supreme Clientele, right? So like, I think for these rappers, I think it's a big, I know for me, who you're hanging out with, how much you hang out with them, and how y'all talk has a lot to do with how those eras go.
Absolutely.
Because like, going back to the Ghostface analogy, you could tell by the Ghostface raps who he was hanging out with.
Right.
I could tell it easy. I could tell when he's hanging out with Trife. I could tell when he's hanging out with Superb. I could tell when he was hanging out with RZA and Ray. Like, you could tell the rapping is different. The talking is different. And I think with Nas, like, big influence of Ray and Ghost, this album to me. I think there's a big influence from Big on this album to me.
Yeah.
There was a big mafioso push, the whole thing, and Nas was in it. And that's how these dudes was talking. They was young dudes talking about getting money. And this, you know, all this mafioso shit was like the New York way of getting money. You know what I mean? And that's how you talk. So I think that all had a lot to do with it. But from just a technical aspect, I think that, you know, the competition that he was dealing with at the time had a lot to do with it too. You talking about the Prodigies and of course the Raising Ghost, the Bigs, the Jay-Z's, like 96.
It was a time.
What a time to be around, like, and you fighting for King of New York status.